Next up is a movie called Watcher.
Hey.
What?
What's up?
Nothing. There's this guy that lives across the street, and he's always looking over here.
Looking over here how?
Every time I look over there, he's just standing in his window, and it's like he's staring right at me.
Which window is it?
Right there.
I can't see anything.
Because it's day.
He only looks in at night?
I can only see him at night. That doesn't mean that he's not... You know what? Forget it.
No, come on. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something, you should talk about it.
Really? I'm fine. So you're Diane Keaton?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I said.
Directed and co-written by Chloe Okuno. Bruce and Eric Holmes, I am drawing from you guys. Do you guys know who Chloe Okuno is? Please tell me that both of you, who I look up to for horror genre stuff, know who she is. Please.
Oh, but this is going to piss
Don't
me
act
off
like
once
me,
you say-
because I'm the one every week who doesn't do their homework, not you guys.
I've still got the right Watcher song stuck in my head, so I can't think of it. I always feel like...
Oh, somebody's... You're right. Very good. I'm not going to cut that because that was only a couple seconds. Eric Holmes, you know who Chloe Okuno is?
I do not.
Oh, boy. Bruce Perky and Eric Holmes. You try to teach me
Oh,
about...
I know. I'm just not going to say. That's it.
Oh, you know?
Yeah, me
Okay.
too.
Okay.
That's my answer.
You guys taught me 2.5 years ago about the beauty and the principles behind Giallo and all that stuff, and Dario Argento, and here we go. Mario Bava. I was your underling, and I still am, by the way. Chloe Okuno. She's one of the directors of a film called VHS 94. She did a short called Storm Drain. At the bottom of Storm Drain is a creature called Ratma. Hail Ratma. Do you guys now remember that short? Oh my gosh, Eric Holmes, you don't remember that short. Bruce, do you remember that? Yes.
Oh, that because I only watched one of the VHS ones and someone we covered here. That's the one with the thing in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Okay.
The tunnel. The broadcaster,
Right.
Female broadcaster, she goes and
Yeah.
then it's. Did you?
Yeah, good call. I suck at life.
No. Both of you. We all loved it, didn't we? We liked Ratman, and that other one at the end, right? Those were
I liked all the segments from that.
Right. Fairness. Yeah. Everything in VHS 94. Very underrated film, by the way.
For some reason, I was thinking like VHS 87 or something. I thought it was like an 80s one. Maybe I'm conflating that with the Fear Street.
Yeah, but anyways, Chloe Okuno, she is the director behind Storm Drain. She is now the director behind Watcher. Very elegant psychological thriller in the vein of, well, I don't know, Roman Polanski, Alfred Hitchcock, Brian De Palma. This time, this version, this Watcher from IFC Midnight, led by Maika Monroe. It's set in Bucharest, I believe Bucharest in Romania. Maika Monroe plays an American transplant. She goes to Romania with her boyfriend, with her husband. Actually, husband played by actor Carl Glusman. So Julia is the name of Maika Monroe, and she joins her husband in Romania. He has a new job there, and she's a fish out of water. Her husband, he speaks Romanian. He's part of the culture. Everything's fine. You know, even though he was he was raised in the U.S., he knows the language. Everything's fine for him. Not too much is fine for her, though, even though they live in a nice, beautiful, I guess, high-rise apartment, and it's everything. It overlooks the city. It's gorgeous. One night, she opens her drapes, or I guess her blinds, and she sees this shadowy figure staring at her. Not very cool. And she believes there's someone who might be watching her, the aforementioned Watcher. And the rest of this narrative centers on whether, yes, is Julia, played by Maika Monroe, is she imagining this stalker, or is this person really stalking her? Watcher will stream exclusively on Shudder on August 26th, but you can actually see it in theaters this Friday, June 3rd. Bruce Perky, your initial thoughts, your overall thoughts regarding Watcher. Did it work for you?
It did. I think this is a pretty solid movie. I think it could be great, but it doesn't quite go to the great status for me, but it's pretty solid.
Would it have been great if it had Ratma? Would Ratma...
Well, actually, the first thing I thought about was this would be fantastic directed by Brian De Palma in his heyday. This would be a knockout movie. And I think it
Oh,
needed
because
a little...
it's directed by a male, right? Right, Bruce?
Absolutely. That's the reason.
Eric, can we get Bruce out of here?
Because it,
Fuck you, Bruce. I'm boycotting this podcast.
that's fine. Never talk to me again. I'll just be like a
Arms
black
crossed,
box here.
boycott enacted.
No, I'm
Count
kidding.
it.
I'm sorry, Bruce. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just felt like it needed a little more flash and dazzle, but it's going for the slow burn and it does it really well. I also want to mention that Maika Monroe is really, really good in this. I almost got shades of Florence Pugh, almost. I think Florence Pugh is a high bar to achieve, so she may not quite be there. But I think that she's an actress to watch. Maika is really good in this.
It follows,
and
right?
yeah, and like the other movie that does this very well, I like Midsummer. This movie and Midsummer are both highly into gaslighting. This movie is so strong on illustrating what gaslighting is like for a person. What this does really well is it really isolates her in so many ways with the language and location and everything. She is in an unnerving situation before anything happens, and there's constantly these moments where people around her that she trusts are talking another language, and she asks them what they're saying, and they say things to her, and you're kind of wondering, were they saying the truth to her? And are people not telling her what's really happening, or is she imagining it? That's a big part of this movie. I think to its detriment, it slow burns a little too long for me. I think it could have turned the corner a little sooner or ramped it up a little sooner. And that's, once again, a personal taste thing. That's what kind of keeps it from going kind of the highest heights for me. But that being said, for me, the very, very final acts of this movie, probably the last 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, geez, yeah.
There's some really good stuff. And I was worried this movie was going to be kind of toothless, kind of gutless. And when it gets to the final acts, it doesn't pull its punches. And I appreciated that. I think ultimately it comes down, it sticks the landing, as we like to say. So I think that actually helps it quite a bit. And I think a lot of people really enjoy this movie. I think this is definitely one of those movies. If you like those woman in the window across the street kind of thrillers, it has that. But if you like kind of a little bit more artsy kind of thriller horror movies, it kind of has some of that too. So I think it's got a little of both.
Eric Holmes, your thoughts on Watcher?
This movie does paranoia very well, I think. And also to Bruce's point, they play with gaslighting very well too. Because, I'm watching the movie and she's like, "Oh, he's following me." I'm like, "Well, is he
following you? Are you
like
watching him?"
it's almost like the movie invites you into gaslight her as well, because they're not, what did he do other than look creepy? And they played scary music, but the characters don't hear the scary music. We hear the scary music. So there's nothing, you don't see anything other than the music that cues you in. You don't really see anything that corroborates her story. You kind of get the sense that the movie wants you to think that, but it doesn't just plant its flag there. And then
it's also a small city. It's also very small. Remember, they
Yeah.
actually make the point that's kind of a small town. So you're actually thinking,
well, like the part she drops it, she gets scared and she drops when he's on the other side of the aisle and he's looking at whatever and she's looking at whatever. And then she looks at him and then he looks at her and it's like, well, I mean, you looked at him first, So there's a bunch of parts in here where you can kind of be like, well, maybe you're the stalker here. And that's where I thought they were going. They play with that really well. As far as when I was watching it, it fucked with me in that way really well. The only thing I didn't like about this was the tag at the end. There's an ending, we'd have to get into spoilers, but there's an ending where it's like, holy crap, they fucking went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they there was a thing after that where they kind of copped out. And I agree. I agree. That seemed like, what? No, stop. Like
I forgave it because it was so strong before that, but I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't ruin the movie, but this is kind of like a high tension sort of situation where it's like you stop watching the movie right here and it's brilliant. You keep watching, it's like it kind of takes it down a notch.
Interesting. We'll talk about later on about the ending, about the tag at the end, which I have different thoughts on that, but I was fine with that tag. But Eric, I want to ask you if you were fine with something Bruce was saying. He's saying he liked the movie, but he felt it slow burned a little bit too much. Do you agree on this assessment, or did you feel the slow burn was good for you because it kept you out of sorts for most of the film? Did you enjoy that part of it?
I didn't mind it, mostly because also Bruce mentioned that they speak French in this without subtitles. So we're right there with her. Like she didn't know what they're saying. If you speak French, you know exactly what they're saying. But if you don't speak French, like I don't speak French
or Romanian,
then you'd be like,
It's Romanian. I think you're
Oh, it's
having
Romanian?
you're having
If you
these
speak French, you also don't know what they're saying.
Okay, so
you know what? It goes back to bad luck banging or loony porn, Eric Holmes. You have PTSD from watching that. I think.
yeah, I thought for sure. Well, anyway,
I am
I'm not gonna
totally
argue that, but
for
yeah.
Chris.
But point being, they're speaking a language that I don't speak, and that the character doesn't speak either. I thought it was really cool that they didn't have subtitles. Like it's kind of missing a lot of this conversation here. But so she, and so you kind of understand. I think that helps with the gaslighting bit though. Because
Yeah.
on one hand, like you're kind of there, you understand along with the music and everything that clues you in, but like with the people talking and you can't understand certain things, you kind of understand why she's freaked out a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know, I didn't know what they said. Maybe it's completely innocent. And the movie just it's so good at just not letting you off the hook. It's just which way is it going to turn out? Is she justified in being freaked out by this guy, or is she prejudging him because of how he looks?
Chloe Okuno, I had a slight advantage over Bruce and Eric regarding watching Watcher because I looked up her IMDb and I was blown away the fact that she did Storm Drain. And Storm Drain, one of the things is, I'm not going to give too much away regarding, go see VHS 94. One of the things that Storm Drain does really well, other than the aforementioned Ratma, is this sense of dread. You are nervous to see what's in the freaking Storm Drain. You are panicking. There is a moment in Watcher where, let's say, a couple of individuals are trying to knock on the door of another individual, and by a lesser filmmaker, it could seem very laborious, monotonous, tropey, but it is absolutely, I think, so far this year, it was one of the probably my most terrifying moment was seeing what would happen regarding a knock on the door, and it takes a lot of skill to pull that off. Regarding what Bruce was saying regarding the slow burn, it went a little bit too elegant thriller slow burn for me at points, but I forgave that because I've seen my share of De Palma and Hitchcock films. I'm glad it went elegant and introspective and all that slow burning stuff for most of it. Each of us had like a little bit of complaints regarding Watcher. I think all of us are ultimately going to recommend this. My only complaint is the gaslighting theme. Loved it. I wanted the ending to go a different way plot wise, and we will talk about it during our spoilers, which we're not going to take, but I like to talk more. Maybe, who knows, maybe we'll record like a 5-minute thing. And it's just me as a wannabe writer. I definitely want to tell you and Eric how I wanted Watcher to end. That said, as Bruce said, the final 15 minutes for me was terrifying, and you're at the edge of your seat. So it will do this is at the very least a recommend, okay, to watch Watcher. Comes out on Shudder. No disrespect to Shudder on August. If you want a psychological thriller right now, check it out in theaters. It's a different look. Psychological thriller in Romania. You're going to see different locations. So let's start off with Eric Holmes regarding your rating on Watcher. What do you give it?
This would have easily been a 5-star for me, but that tag at the end, I can't. We'll do 4.5, which is still really good, but that tag at the end just did not do it for me.
4.5 stars. That is very, very good. 5 stars. It would have been 5 stars again. I'm gonna beat a horse. It would have been 5 stars if it had Rotten at the end, right?
If they would have stuck
Ratma?
the landing, if they would either stuck the land, like if they were going to continue on, because there's a version of this movie where without that tag,
okay, we'll talk about it. Well, when we're done with it,
there's a version of this where they continue the story, and I'm fine with that. Just the way they did that last few seconds, it was like the last thing was like, no, that doesn't track at all.
Yeah,
but that's it's so tiny. It's so tiny because the rest of it is so good. I thought it was everything they aimed for. I thought they nailed.
Again, Brian De Palma is my favorite director. Eric was talking about it doesn't track. When things don't track, that means it's my favorite, like one of my favorite films. I like illogical stuff. I don't know, Bruce. Tag at the end, a little bit too much slow burn. What is your ultimate rating? Eric gave it 4.5. What do you give it?
I probably go 3.5. I agree with Eric though about the end, but that doesn't knock it down for me. It's really just before that I wanted it to get to some places a little sooner, but I mean it's still a really solid movie. I think it's worth watching.
Solid recommend from Bruce Perky. I agree with Eric Holmes. Watcher for me gets 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars for me and Eric Holmes. 3.5 stars for Bruce. Again, Friday, June 3rd in 500 theaters everywhere you rent movies on June 21st, 2022.